Alright guys, welcome to the Zephagamon gameplay guide. I know many of you guys have been waiting for this. We are going second against Mother D Reaper here, and with our mulligan hand, doesn't look the greatest. We are going to go and find a new hand, just because there's no rookie to work with. We want to digivolve and build our stack in the back. Now, just so you guys know, this is a gameplay that was done before the ban list restriction was announced, when Mother Shoto are not allowed to be played in the same deck anymore, but this was before that happened. But I still really want to show you guys this really cool build that we came up with for Zephagamon. You guys might have noticed, why are we playing Great Memory Boost? There's something sneaky in our hand. Why is there an octopus, an Octomon? This is supposed to be a bird deck. We'll show you guys. This is how Octomon changes the deck entirely, making it so much more viable than it currently is, and it works like tremendously well, surprisingly, and I just can't wait to show you guys, and it will fulfill its duty in showing you guys in this entire gameplay guide. But yeah, you guys know I always really like playing the pteromon engine instead of just the regular tribal Zephaga in this particular build, just because I felt like there's a lot of synergy to suspend down the opponent's Digimon, and we gain a lot of memory and value as we sort of like go up there and climb up into our stack. So here we're just trying to set up a little bit. We're just trying to digivolve slowly, give the opponent as little memory as possible. The Mother D Reaper deck generally is also really good at, giving us very little memory to work with, thanks to like searchers being able to be like played as one cost, and they can continue to reduce their play costs with the Mother effect as well. So they come out with the Jerry and start ramping up. It's really like a time ticking bomb where eventually they find their D Reaper, and then they're just gonna, OTKS out of nowhere, which feels very similar to like, the big stack Royal Knights deck, as you're adding sources. But one of the tech cards that we kind of included, not specifically just for this matchup, which actually came in real handy as we sort of like play tested, is the Argomon that keeps the tamers suspended. The level 5/1 right here, just because of how powerful Mother Shoto is and being able to give the Mother blocker constantly at the end of turn, by suspending their tamers, like keeping their Shoto and ties down, the Mother is no longer able to have that blocker. None of their Digimon can have blocker at this point, and we want to keep that for as long as possible so that we can continue to attack into them, and to either attack into their Digimon, attack into their security, and just win that way. This is a little bit of a grindy game. There's a bit of control elements on both sides quite a bit, but this is why I decided to use all my memory boosts and just go ahead to go into Grand Galeamon, and then going into Medieval Gallantmon, so we can start going for attacks by clearing out their board. And with Grand Galeamon's inherit effect, Medieval Gallantmon can unsuspend as it attacks into a Digimon. We're gonna alliance together as well. Maybe not necessarily, just because we just want to make sure we have like a really big DP buff. But they did play the Shoto the prior turn, so the Mother currently at that moment did have blockers, so we want to make sure that we have enough DP to run over that searcher. We want to clear out those searchers and slow their ramping down. But you guys can see they can ramp up very, very quickly, and pretty much once they gather enough sources, they can go for that D Reaper play and make multiple attacks and swings. But we have answers. We're able to actually control the flow of the game. So we just got to be patient in this matchup right here. And one of the nice things with Medieval Gallantmon that kind of counters this deck a little bit is that whenever they play stuff with their bodies, we have the choice to actually pop them. But the one tricky thing is, like, do we pop the first searcher or do we pop the next body that they play out? We don't know what's in their hand, so that's kind of like the tricky spot right there. So we have to make those decisions quite carefully. So now we're going to come up with the pteromon, giving that pendulum feat, lose 2 memory with suspended, and that's why I love going to the pteromon X, because then we get to suspend it down, we gain 2 memory, more so the opponent loses the 2 memory. We can use the Argomon to swing over it safely, and then we can start alliancing for big damage checks. And the fact that we have a lot of inheritables that kind of gain us memory back when we take down Digimon is perfectly what we need, Mother always kind of ends the board with some sort of like Digimon on there because they need there to establish and ramp up. And this gives us the opportunity to attack, attack, attack. And that's how we take advantage of the game situation and the game flow, is remove their Digimon first. Once the Digimon's out and gone and there's no blocker on the Mother, we go ahead and basically swing as many checks as we can. Here I'm just going to finish off and continue to search and find my pieces with Green Memory Boost, and I'm going to go into the Galeamon and finally playing out a Shoto, which I really need. This is going to be pretty helpful, especially when it comes to synergizing with our vortex attack later on, but we're establishing a really powerful board right here. Really, really good. We got multiple bodies that we can utilize, and we can start making attacks. We're pretty much presenting lethal by the next turn and the opponent can't stop us or can't slow us down, it's going to be pretty doomed for them as well, because we have multiple checks with Medieval, with Alliance, 2 checks with only 3 security left. We have just enough to finish them off. And the reason why I really like the Rapid Mon in this deck as well is not only gives that kind of protection that we need against any other deletion effects or balancing decks at all, but also having the ability to trash the opponent's security when they go into the top end. Here they come down with the new Jerry. Then the new Jerry, when it plays, gets to DP reduce our Digimon. And it was kind of good that we, managed to make use of our Argomon to suspend it and do the checks last turn, just because I don't feel like their Digimon is going to threat us by attacking into us generally. But now that we lost the Argomon, their tamers are gonna start unsuspending, and they get to put down another Shoto, and they're gonna start gaining a lot of memory. Our board is pretty sticky, so that our bodies do tend to survive quite a lot in this matchup, and they're gonna constantly gain a lot of memory in the start main phase. But thankfully, you guys saw we top deck and drew into our second copy of the Argomon, which I am running multiple copies. I'm just only running it as a 2 of at the moment, just because it's really good against many matchups when it has like heavy tamers. Being able to reduce its digivolution cost, you can lock out many things in the meta. Not only just this particular deck, but it's also like Purple Hybrid, which we'll see a little bit later on. There's also Royal Knights to suspend down Cool Boys, and quite a lot of decks to really just like stop them from using their advantages, which is why I kind of play the 2 of, and it really works out nicely. Anyways, we're going to continue to climb up, and at this moment, since they have those tamers established, we don't want them to come back up with a mother blocker, and we want to continue to pressure on, which is why, again, I go into that second Argomon that we have, and we get to keep their tamers again down. They gain a lot of memory, which is fine, it's inevitable, but at least we stop any blocking. A Mother D-Reaper that is able to be immune to basically everything and can block and can get DP buffs off Tai, and they get to draw their cards is really big. And the reason why the Argomon really paid off early on by suspending their Tai is because if they were going to block, they get to draw cards in their hand. And the thing is, at this moment, they don't have a lot of cards in their hand. If I remember, they only have around 3 or 4 cards left that they can play. So the memory that they're getting doesn't matter to begin with. It's like, without cards in your hand, without card economy, what can you really play with getting 5-6 memory per turn? Right here, there's a little bit of a mistake, because I believe the old Jerry is supposed to reveal the Searcher, and the Searcher was supposed to be tucked underneath the Mother, and then they were supposed to play a second Searcher from their hand instead. So we completely missed that, so apologies for that. But in this situation, they have so many sources anyways, they can pretty much play out any D-Reaper for free. This is where we can see the Gatekeepers come down. And that is another problematic card aside from just Shoto and Mother blocking, just because the security -1 is going to slow us down from being able to push for game. This is where we want to be very careful and selective again with our Medieval Gallantmon pops. During their turn, we're not going to be able to pop them just because they have massive DP thanks to Mother. This is why when it comes back to our turn, just now you saw, we're going to attack into it. We're not going to Alliance, but we're forcing out that second new Jerry to come out so that we get the turn player a priority to pop it before the DP reduction can happen, so then we can ensure to swing over that Gatekeeper. And then we're going to Digivolve on top of our Argomon to go on top of a second Medieval Gallantmon to pop the other Gatekeeper, and this is why I'm going to go push for lethal to try and finish the game off. I'm going to swing with Zephagamon. Zephagamon can bomb deck as well, and I get to unsuspend. As a result, I clear their entire board, and yes, I evoed on top of the Argomon, but like I mentioned, this is where we're going to try to finish it off with all the checks that we have, with all the memory we got. We're going to pay that 5, and I'm actually contemplating, this is it. This is one of the usages of the Octomon, and I'm going to show you guys again. We're going to play this down, we're going to gain the extra bodies, but we can Alliance for 2 checks, and then I was going to swing with Zephagamon to finish it off, but unfortunately, wow, that last check comes down with another Gatekeeper that we're gonna have to deal with, which is pretty tricky now at this point. Because we're at 0 memory, we're gonna end up giving them a lot of memory to start off with. They got 3 Shotos, they got a Tai, so they're gonna be starting at 6 memory at the start of main. Oh my goodness. I was thinking, oh no, this could be really tricky, because now everything gets to unsuspend. They get to give their Mother blocker here. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I gotta instantly get rid of it. I'm just gonna hard drop the Medieval Gallantmon, pop that. I'm gonna give them a ton of memory because it doesn't matter anyways, because once again, they only have very few cards in their hand. They only have 4 fewer cards. So I'm going to give them all the memory they want. I also have to suspend my own Zephaga to reduce the play cost of Medieval alongside of that Gatekeeper that they just came out. And now they dropped down another one and they keep recovering. They're trying their best to stay within the game. Can they actually answer us? Can they end us? Because they still haven't touched our security at all. Their only win con is to get into D-Reaper. But you guys can see we have 2 other Zephaga aces to work with. And that's the reason why I dropped down the 2 Medievals, because both of them can blast into Zephaga ace, which I am saving for when they attack with their D-Reaper. But even if they come out with it right now, we still pop it with a Medieval since there's no TP buffs. And because they're not able to close out the game, we win the next turn anyways. Alright, in the next match, we're facing off against Purple Hybrid. And this is before the ban list restriction announcement, and just so you guys know, this gameplay was also before that, so the mats and the jack rates are going to be full at 4. Here we are going to be going first. We're going to start off with a hand. We'll start off to search and find the pieces, and we are pretty well equipped to sort of combat against this deck thanks to also having Octomon. Purple Hybrid is one of those decks that tends to not to leave a body by the end of the turn, so then we're not really be able to capitalize it off Zephagamon, just because we really want to have bodies on the opponent's side so that we can actually attack over them. And that's why the Octomon is really good here. Argomon is also fantastic to lock down their tamers, which is pretty much tailored to sort of combat against this heavy meta deck. We have the Galemon here being able to establish a Shoto. The reason I decided to use the green scramble there is because my hand doesn't look very good in terms of following up. So I want to ensure that if I lose my Galemon this turn, at least I can grab and play a Palmon back out and I have a rookie to work with all over again, even though I'm not using the maximized efficiency of the green scramble there. I do have blocker with the Galemon. I do stop the attack. They're going to gain that memory. That's why they can go into their Dustmon, Velgamon combo and so on and pop our Galemon, which is kind of how I predicted was going to happen either way, which is fine because like I said, that's why I set up the scramble, so I'm not going to brick myself up. I can continue to play just in that sense. Usually the green scramble is better off to be saved at the very last moments against Purple Hybrid just because they tend to mill you out, but I feel like I was pretty desperate in that situation. Just because they have a lot of rush attacks, I want to be able to keep up with my momentum in the game overall for the rest of the time. That's why I decided to go for it. Anyways, here with Palmon's effect at the start of main, we get to give the lose 2 memory to Gazi, which is why when we go into the Galemon to suspend it down, we actually get to gain that 2 memory because we're not actually gaining it. It's the opponent losing the memory and Gazi only stops memory gain. So again, because we get to go for that, we get to go ahead and climb up and clear off the Gazi by going into Medieval. One of the nice things with Medieval, it's all you may effect, so we're not going to pop it because we want to use Shoto to give the end of turn piercing with it so that we can go ahead and swing over it and then use Grand Galemon to unsuspend and pierce for damage. So we're actually pushing for aggression and we're trying to reach closer to a win condition as well. So we're going to continue to chip away at their security. Swing into the Nidhogg is totally fine at 11k. Thankfully we had the Galemon that gives extra 2k as well, so we can sort of re-establish our board, and having that Medieval is just going to be really helpful to stop them from, if they play anything, we're going to instantly pop it. And by going into their Dustmon here, they are going to potentially get rid of the Medieval, but this is one of the things where I'm not worried about, because as long as I have Zephaga ace, this is the moment where I would just go right into it and bottom deck their Velgamon, which is really detrimental to that deck. Not only they don't get any of their undulation effects, it puts away the Velgamon, which they have to find a way to reset up all over again if they don't have additional ones that they can work off of with. And they're just going to end up Rivals barraging into us so that we get a lot of memory because the Uko still is on the board. So the both Shotos helps us gain the 2 memory at the start of main, so we can start to play at 5 and we can reset up and reestablish a second stack ready to go the next turn and repeat this whole process to keep the Purple Hybrid deck in control. One of the nice things is also because they don't have a tamer here at this moment, and if they're not able to establish their tamers, that means they can't go for their hybrid plays. I was able to set up a ton of resources with multiple great memory boosts. Those Shotos are going to give me so much memory advantage during my own turn. I can really excel and actually play aggressive against the Purple Hybrid and match their aggression as well. You guys can always see how fast they keep up with their attacks by digivolving the Dusk on top of Gabu, and then as they swing, they have the Gabu option to draw and trash one, which resets up the Velgar, which we bomb decked if they ever had an additional one that they can work with in the hand. And now they get to delete themselves, they get to gain a memory off Cupimon by trashing a card from hand, they get to play the Tamer back, which is ideally going to be Matt. Matt's going to cycle the Dustmon all over again, which is probably usually the case. and then they can reestablish and reclimb, and they got 2 Ukos. They're pretty much getting close to lethal at this point, and we really need to do something to stop them. They're going to continue to find some pieces. Unfortunately, they're not going to grab anything off purple memory boost because everything that they reviewed was not a purple Digimon, which is unfortunate. But here now we have potentially 5 memory to work with, starting with 3 with the memory setter Shoto. If we push out the Gale at the starter main, either way, because there's an Uko surviving, which is pretty huge. It gives us that extra 2 memory to work with. The only downside here right now, I think I'm kind of stuck on a level 5, and I'm not too sure what I can really do. So I decided to go ahead and attack with the Galemon just to gain even more memory with the inheritable effects with Fluffy and the pteromon, and then that way I can try to give them as low memory as possible. But just because we don't have a level 5 to climb up, that doesn't necessarily mean we're out of place. We're going to still continue to pressure on, just because I'm going to show you guys, even if you can't climb up, you can always choose to hard play the combination of cards. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to hard play that Octomon because there's 3 or fewer Digimon on board. Play a token on their side suspended. Pop the 2 boosts. Hard drop the Zephaga ace for 8, passing them perfectly back to their 3 memory. And now at the end of the turn, we get to vortex and attack. And I want to attack over that token. Similar to Medieval Gallant, Zephaga Ace's effects are all you may. We get to suspend if we want to. We also get to bottom deck if we want to, but I'm not going to because I want to use Vortex to attack over the token so I can pierce for damage and also force them to trash a card off their hand. Now, I want to quickly clarify that I made a incorrect play here at the end of the turn. By suspending both my Shotos, I can give both my Octomon and Galemon blocker, but the Galemon cannot unsuspend because it doesn't have Vortex Warriors in its traits. My idea was to, give them both blocker anyways because Zephaga itself has blocker anyways, so I can stop multiple attacks and actually stop them from lethal. But the upcoming play kind of just doesn't really matter anyways because we're going to end up losing both those Digimon because they're going to go into the Dustmon right here to change our Galemon into blue, so they try to maximize off their milling effects when they go into Velgarmon, so we trash 3 each, and it's going to be 13k. I don't want to match the block just yet because I'm going to give Ace Overflow, which could be pretty bad for me, and then they get their deletion effects. I was contemplating too, just because if I do block with the Zephaga here, crash, that means they can't delete both our Octomon and our Galemon, so we have at least the 2 level 4s. But I kind of value the Zephagamon right here because it can pretty much unsuspend itself once per turn when any Digimon becomes suspended, whether the opponents or including itself, giving us 2 potential blocks. Which is why I decided to block with the Octo, and therefore I lost my Gale at the end of the attack with the Velgamon anyways here. But this continues to pressure against them because they don't have a whole lot of memory to work with. I still have 2 blocks potentially with the Zephaga Ace. They might not be able to push for game. And by postponing the potential attacks that they can have, you guys can see they're running out of cards in their deck. So they potentially might end up milling themselves out, and we actually have more cards than they do. So it looks like they're going to grab the Dustmon off the mat on play, and they're going to look into go for a calling play to grab additional Digimon that they need, grabbing the Gale and the Genkaku promote so that they can go for rush attacks. They only have 1 Cupimon egg left to work with, and they're going to go for big Jack Raid plays here, gaining a ton of memory, and then hard dropping the Galemon, which definitely gains rush, digivolving into the dusk, changing our memory setter Shoto into a different color, but they're not going to be able to match our DP because they used it on our Galemon earlier, meaning the Velgarmon can only reach up to 11k DP at this moment. So when we block with Zephaga, I definitely will be able to block the attack and survive and still unsuspend. And you guys can see that they continue to mill themselves out, and they only have 1 card left in their deck. And this is going to be a desperate situation for them because they're really just running out of gas at this point. They can try to set up for the next turn and then go for the lethal attacks once again, but they really need to deal with the Zephagamon because if they don't deal with it right now, which they're going to use Rival's Barrage to get rid of it, that means we get another 2 additional blocks. We are still kind of breaking up a little bit here, which is really unfortunate. No rookie, can't go into our level 4, no level 5 still. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop down the Zephaga Ace once more, and this is going to be their last turn with 0 cards left in their deck and everything in their trash. Can they finish us off? Do they have enough resources to go for the multiple attacks? We can stop again, block 2 hits, meaning they need a total of 5 swings. Gabumon's gonna push out and gain a memory at a starter main. They can potentially swing with it to gain another memory with QP by trashing a card in their hand. They can even try to potentially mill us out, but we still have quite a number of cards left in our deck. So they go into Dustmon, changing the color of our Shoto, and then they're going to attack, going into Velgarmon, milling 2 only, meaning it's still just 11k, so we can continue to block. They're going to play out the mat, grab a calling to grab pieces that they need. They can also still trash a card off QP to gain another memory, use the calling to grab pieces, but we have so many left in our deck, there's no way they can just Vulgar and mill us out. They're gonna go for the calling just to grab Dustmons back, so then they can potentially go into another one. They have a purple memory boost to work with. They should be at 0 memory because they used the calling for 1, but at this moment, they just couldn't mill us out anymore. Whether I block this attack or not, and even give them ace overflow, they just don't have enough resources left to either win and continue to push forward, so in the end, they concede. Alright, in this next game, we're going to be facing off against AVAULT Chronicle. Starting with our opening hand, you know what? We can keep it. We are going second as well, so we have additional draws. I have a rookie to work with. I can climb up the stack, you know, not too bad at all. Finding the great memory boost as well, so that we can continue and begin our searching. Our opponent puts the 3 with their UG, so we're going to put them back to 1 by establishing the memory setter Shoto. I felt like it was a good memory play right there just to put them at 1. And now we can go ahead and push out the pteromon. I'm going to Digivolve into Gaomon for 1 cost. I can suspend it down. And here I was thinking if I wanted to swing over that Dorumon. But the thing is, because of the Gaomon's effect, we have a Shoto. We're going to have piercing. And I don't want to end up losing the Gaomon just in case when I pierce, I check into something bigger than it. Then that means I have to re-establish and climb my stack all over again. So I just felt like, you know what, the Dorumon is not that dangerous at the moment. I can deal with it the turn after instead. And then here, because I have 3 memory to work with, I have the great memory boost. So I have quite a bit amount of stuff that I can go ahead and Digivolve into the Rapidmon. I'm going to be able to gain the protection effect since I do have a Shoto there. I decided just to evo into the Palmon X and cycle for additional card. And this is where I'm going to go into Zephaga Ace myself without just waiting for them to attack. Just because generally I know when they attack, they gain a lot of crazy effects, which makes it hard. So I felt like this proactive move helps me, you know, start trashing their security. I could have pierced for additional check as well. And this already puts them down to 3 or fewer security. And then we can actually go ahead and go for some really crazy plays this particular turn. The opponent wouldn't even see it coming. They're just setting up thinking nothing's going to happen to them, but we actually have lethal right here, and it's all thanks to Octomon. Playing the Octomon, play out the token, swing into it at Vortex, trash security, and pierce for a check as well, and then gain the memory back. Palmon is going to swing, and my idea was to finish it off with Zephaga because it unsuspends, but we check into a X antibody, giving them a memory, passing the turn, and we missed lethal. But this is what I want to show you guys. If it wasn't for the X antibody, we would have actually just crazily finished the game out there out of nowhere in a matter of few turns, all just because of Octomon. Octomon is really the MVP, guys. Don't underestimate this card. I would definitely recommend you guys trying it out in the Zephagamon deck as well. But here they're going to start climbing back out. They have 3 memory to work with their setter. They're going to gain 2 of UG. They're going to go into the Ginryu, into Grade. Grade gets the immunity, and they get to go into Alphamon as they climb up and Digivolve, set up a second stack at the back as well, add something underneath UG, but they're not going to be able to Digivolve into a level 4 in the back because it seems like they're missing a piece at the moment, but they still get to swing in a check with Alphamon. That's at least 16k plus the 2k of Ginryu, which is 18k. And because they use the Lapis's Demon, I can anticipate them forcing us to try to attack into them, and they're probably going to redirect the attack or either blast ace, and I don't want that to happen, so I decided to block with the Zephaga Ace anyways to give them that ace overflow low early on, just so that we don't end up giving them free value if they ever go into the Oryuken if they have their pieces. Then we can reestablish the board right here. They recover the security. Situation looks okay. We can probably try to finish it off. They have 1 redirect though, which we have to play around. We have to respect the ace as well. I really want to climb up so that I can try to address the Alphamon, but it is completely immune with a lot of DP. They also have opponent's turn extra 2k, so they're still sitting at 18k at this moment. And then by going to Rapid, I could probably go into another level 6. I want to be able to threaten a Zephaga Ace during their turn, so if they ever try to attack, I can kind of counter them as well. So I'm going to go ahead and use Great Memory Boost to find any pieces that I need, and then grab the Grand Gaomon. And I'm looking to go into the Medieval to pass the turn, just to sit there, and then maybe potentially try to threaten the Ace after, but I thought it wouldn't do too much anyways. I could just go straight into the Ace off of Rapid, So I, in the end, decided to digivolve into the Gaomon in the back instead. Now, thinking back, maybe I really should have kept that Gaomon in my hand, because one of the priorities to sort of like take down these big ginormous stacks is really to rack up as much DP as we can. Their inheritables with their DP buffs is just really insane. Now that they push up the door, they get to attack, go into the grade, go into another second alpha here, recover another security, gain a bunch of DP that's also immune to Digimon effects. Acing is not going to matter here. This is why I'm starting to realize I'm losing momentum, because they have so much established on their board compared to us. That one Alphamon stack being invincible, they have a second one that they can utilize, they have 2 UGs, 2 Coda UGs as well. They can just continue to ramp up very, very quickly. I go for the Zephaga Ace just to deal with the other second Alphamon stack that is no longer immune, because I felt like there's a good value there. And then I can try to push for game, but still back to us, we're still on the pressure side now at the moment. This is how crazy the game situation is, because in the beginning we had all the momentum established, but now they have all this kind of set up on their side. We are actually the ones who are getting pressured, trying to desperately take down those 2 security, which we were so close to finishing it off way quicker. But I was going to mention, in this particular matchup, the longer the game goes, the more difficult it is for us to finish it off against them. So here I'm just trying to find different leeways to potentially get rid of that Alphamon stack. I want to go into Medieval, and then with Medieval, I could actually alliance for massive DP and try to attack into that Alphamon to get rid of it. But Barrier is still quite problematic for Zephagamon, because generally Zephagamon, we want to be able to delete their stuff, so then we can trash security with Rapid, we can gain the memory back and continue to keep turn and continue to play that way instead. And here, I felt like I'm just really pushed to a corner, because if I don't establish that, they're going to continue to ramp up the next turn and keep going at it. And I really needed to cycle through my deck, because I need to continue to digivolve up to draw additional cards to find ways to potentially out it. And now, I'm gambling the fact that maybe they just don't have the ace, because I saw 2 Oreomons from the early checks. If they don't have it, that means I have an opportunity to actually take it down. And it looks like they went for the barrier, because now that tells me if they had the ace, they probably might as well just got into it. But at least now I'm standing with 2 blockers, with the Zephagas unsuspending during the Alliance attack, Medieval Galamon also a blocker, which should be unsuspended because of the Shoto that we have, allowing the Vortex Warrior to unsuspend, which I realized and remembered right here. And then we could probably stop them from attacking. They're still kind of have to think twice, because we can still threaten a potential Zephaga Ace. The Alphamon no longer has the protection, but they're going to go into it, but they're actually going to use X Antibody to hard Evo into it instead. So now they DP reduce 15k into her Zephaga, gaining the Ace Overflow, and they actually still have protection from the Alphamon Inherited effect. So even if we went into a Zephaga Ace on top of Medieval, it's not gonna cut it, because they can just trash their own security to keep it in there. They're gonna go for Greymon and attack. They're gonna suspend their Coda UG to go into Alpha, a third one at this point, which is, again, they get to recover, and then they can still Digivolve in the back. And it looks like they're going to go into another Oreoken. So it looks like they never had the Oreomon, but hard evoing into Oreoken here is still just as good. They're going to gain a lot of memory. They clear out our entire board, and the whole situation and the tables have turned into their favor, which is, again, oh man, I gotta say, I'm still kind of salty on that X Antibody, because it was been so cool if we're able to finish that off. But here, don't worry, we're gonna try and continue to play, continue to Digivolve up, and we have a few memory boosts we can work with. I'm not gonna use the Scramble just yet, because I feel like I can still save it for the next turn if I really need to. But thinking back, I probably should have actually just go ahead and used it, just because I have a lot of memory. I can easily climb up into a 6 potentially this turn, and then maybe continue to cycle and dig and find pieces, and maybe try to address those 2 Oreokens. But I have to admit, the 2 Oreokens is just way too difficult to address, especially having so much DP on the opponent's turn. The left stack has extra 4k, so it's at least 20k. The one on the right is at least 18k. But I also want to quickly clarify that I miscounted my own memory here during my own turn, but it wouldn't have changed my play in the end, just because I hard dropped the Shoto for cost of the other setter just to pass them perfectly back at 3 anyways. As they attack into us, I definitely want to block with the Galeamon just to prevent the lethal from happening, just because they have the 3 swings against our 2 security. Not too sure what they're trying to search for at this moment too. Maybe an Oreomon that they can utilize, or maybe pieces that they just want to climb up. But I do realize they are running out of cards in their deck. They are continuously going to Digivolve and draw and cycle a lot of cards. And because of that, maybe we might have a little bit of a hope if we're able to sustain for a couple more turns, or maybe 1 or 2 turns. They might end up decking themselves out and we could win that way just because they recover off Alphamon too. But going with those checks, they're going to be able to gain a ton of memory back, like 6 in total with the Oreokens. And because they only have 1 card left in their deck, they're just going to hard drop the Kota Yuji just to pass us to 3 and see what we can really do in response. Against 3 security now, it's going to be really difficult to actually finish it off against with this crazy stack that they have, and basically the entire deck in their hand. They certainly can get into an ace if they want to. When we try to attack, we want to use the scramble to play out the pteromon, and then this is just too tricky. We're going to go ahead and suspend our own Digimon to go into medieval here. We're going to attempt to pop one of them, but all they have to do is trash their own security with Orioken's effect. They're immune with the Alphamon. We can't even swing over them just because they're too big and too massive, so in the end they got it instead.